Good morning, friends. Strictly Average here. I'm here with your morning cup of average. This is the kind of thing you want to take in while you're drinking your cup of coffee in the morning. Your daily dose of what the heck is going on in the geek world. Today is Tuesday after the SCG Con weekend, one of the most interesting and amazing experiences I've had in a very long time. And today I want to talk to you about lessons learned throughout the weekend when I was mulling around with Standard. I went into the weekend with a Standard blue-white control list. I went and I started Friday night playing a couple events, and I was like, oh, this is just not quite where I want to be right now. So I started changing the deck around, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to try out Esper. And I tried out like an Esper control list, and I wasn't running approach, and I was just doing my own thing. And throughout the weekend I kind of evolved it, and it just felt like it wasn't strong. And then I was like, I saw another deck list, and I'm like, okay, blue black mid range, and I played it, and it just pooped all over me. It was just terrible. By the time Saturday night came around, I was talking with my partner who we were up there playing with, my testing partner Keith, and we were like, maybe we're just wrong. Maybe we need to go back to Approach of the Second Sun. Maybe we go back to that list. We've been playing it for a while, and we trusted in it. We knew the Classic was coming up on Sunday, and it was just one of those things where we're like, okay, let's go with what we're comfortable. Possibly a long tournament, play what you know, kind of thing. And I got back to my hotel room and I started scouring for lists, the changes other people made over time on Approach of the Second Sun lists. And I found that Brad Nelson had actually played it at the Pro Tour. So I found his list and I said, oh, this is great. And I went and I took my original list and I took his list and I kind of changed things around a little bit. I cut the Gideon of the Trials out of my list, and I went purely with Teferis and Gear Hulks as my win cons alongside of Approach. And I felt that Approach was in a really good spot because you can just steal games with Approach where people don't see it coming. So that's what I sleeved up for Sunday. When I was looking at the list, I saw that Brad had some really weird tech in his sideboard. It was like a walking ballistas and some other things, and just didn't make sense. So I was like, I want to make my own sideboard for what I think is going to be good. Round one of the event, I was tired. I was just not really into it, and I made a major play mistake game one. It cost me the match completely. I was put in a situation where I had already cast Approach of the Second Sun. I was getting beaten down by my opponent, was trying to dig for either a Settle the Wreckage or a Fumigate or another Approach of the Second Sun to just win. My opponent was not playing any counter spells, so I would have won. I cast my Gear Hulk while my Search for Escanta trigger was on the stack, and cast a card out of my graveyard, reducing the number of cards in my graveyard to 6, which would force me not to flip Search for Escanta. I don't know why I did it. As soon as I did it, I was like, wow, this is bad. Looking at the way that my lands were laid out, my answers that I had in my hand, if I wasn't greedy and I just let the search flip, I would have been able to dig for my approach, and I could have won. Game two, I just was frazzled. I was rocked by my massive play mistake game one. I let it affect me, and it cost me that match. I quickly went to 0-1. The lesson I learned there was just plain, take your time, make your decisions, and if you make a mistake, just roll with it. Don't let it affect you. Take each game as a single individual game, and each round as an individual round, and try not to let it rock you. Round two, I went in, I was done in 15 minutes. I absolutely destroyed my opponent, locked him out of his God's Pharaoh's Gift twice, and he scooped up his cards. Went outside, calmed down, figured, okay, I can do this. I can still cash if I do a good run. I went outside, talked to my friends, get my pairings sent to me on my phone, and I open the email and I see my opponent is Brad Nelson. And I'm like, oh my god, I'm playing the guy who inspired my deck. I'm playing Brad Nelson. This was my absolute highest profile match I've ever played. I played a lot of GPs and Opens, but I've never been in a position where I played a pro, played somebody that I follow, reading his stuff, everything else. So I sat down with Brad, and we talked a little bit. Really nice guy, great guy, and we're just playing, and I won game one. He was on an Esper list that he actually wrote about this week, or is writing about this week. It's a new variation. He cut Approach of the Second Sun, and he's just running Esper Teferi. Seemed really strong, but game one, he wasn't prepared to beat me with Approach. Game two, he beat me down with Knight of Malices. In game three was probably one of the most intense games of Magic that I ever played. I lost. He had 4 cards left in his library. I got partway through the game and I realized that he had answered all of my win cons, and I had answered all of his Knight of Malices and things that could have hurt me, and it just became an attrition game. And I realized that he was drawing a ton of cards, counted his library, and I said, oh, maybe I can mill him. So I started activating Get New Rivulets, just toasting his library, putting his stuff in the graveyard. I was basically a top deck away from another Rivulet or Scavenging Grounds or something for that game plan, and I could actually beat Brad Nelson. That would have been amazing. But I played some great Magic. I'm sure there's spots where I could have done better. I'm sure there's spots that I could have played much better. But the truth is, I played probably one of my better games of Magic. He's just better. He's Brad. He's great. He won. He deserved it. He ended up going on and take 6th at the Open. Now this game was a point where, after this match, I was talking to him, and he kind of said to me, he's like, why didn't you bring in the ballistas against me for game 2 and game 3? I wouldn't have been able to beat you. And I kind of looked at him like, well, I saw your list and I didn't understand what the ballistas were for. And he's like, well, did you read my guide? He's like, did you read my write-up about it? He says, I know SCG Premium is expensive and some people can't afford it, but it's worth it. And I said, well, to be honest, Brad, I do have access to SCG Premium, but no, I did not read your article. I saw the deck list and I started mucking with it. And that brings me to my other big lessons learned. We see this a lot when it comes to limited sets. I listen to the Limited Resources podcast, and they always say you can't look at the card reviews after the set review and just say, okay, this card is an A or this card is a B. You need to really kind of listen and hear context. And the lesson is, when taking somebody's deck list who's a pro and they write articles, go out and read the context on why they made the decisions they made. Because the context in this case was a walking ballista is not only a beatdown card, damage dealer to your opponents, but it's also a very handy answer to Knight of Malices. Because Knight of Malice is protection from white, which hits a lot of our spot removal spells. And having a ballista on the field would allow you to basically machine gun those down and not have to lose, like I did. So he basically told me, if you had went with my the full list of sideboard from the Pro Tour and had read my article, there's no way I would have beaten you. You would have probably beat me in 2. And he wasn't saying it maliciously, he wasn't saying it rude, it was just the truth. I took his deck list out of context, didn't understand the card lists, and it hurt me. I ended up going on to draw my next round and lose to Esper the following round with the same issue I ran against Brad, where I lost to Knight of Malices and I didn't have answers to him. I didn't have ways to kill the knights, and they just beat me down. So that was another huge takeaway is, if you're going to make a deck change, you're going to follow somebody else's list, try to understand the context as to why they used the cards that they did. Anyways, it was a fun time. I mean, I did poorly in the Classic, but I learned a lot. And being able to sit down with Brad Nelson and just talk to him for a little bit was worth every penny of my entry. Anyways, that's all for today. I don't want to talk you guys off too long. tomorrow we're going to actually have a fun episode. We're going to tell a little funny story from SCG Con. I'm going to basically tell you about how I accidentally almost killed a Pro Tour player who recently did very well on the Pro Tour just with humor. I accidentally made one of my little Strictly comments that made him laugh so hard while he was drinking his energy drink that he almost choked. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day. Make it a good one. Enjoy what you got going on. And please, let me know how we're doing. Let me know if you like the videos, hate them. Any sort of feedback is huge. I want to make this great. I want to make this something you guys like. And the only way I'm going to know is if you tell me. Take care, guys. Have a great day.